Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'd like to thank United Sikhs for inviting me here today. And I think there is some similarities between London and New York, and that's the traffic. So it took us about an hour to get here, so I think I'm used to the climate now here. But seriously, it's great to be here, and I'm going to have to address a number of issues. But before I go into my presentation, if I can just respond to what my colleague said. The Equality and Human Rights Commission in the UK, we were actually approached by a number of Sikh organisations to actually publish some guidance for Sikhs and wearing the Sikh articles placed in the workplace. And for those who can, if you access the website of the Equality and Human Rights Commission and put in Sikh, you will see those guidance there. And what we've done as part of the Equality and Human Rights Commission is we've actually done a snapshot of all the legislation that's there in the UK that affects the Sikhs. And then we've given some case studies in terms of how we've been able to resolve the issue, for example, in employment or in hospitals or in the public space, where there's been accommodation between the authorities and Sikhs in terms of wearing the turban, wearing 5Ks. So if you can go tap into that website, I've brought some copies with me and I'll leave them for you. But I think it's very interesting. And it might be an opportunity actually for maybe United Sikhs to take lead in this, that if you can actually get in touch with your Equal Opportunities Commission, I think that's right, it's in the USA, actually speak to your Equal Opportunities Commission and see if they can do similar guidance that we've done in the UK. So that might be a practical step in terms of taking that forward. But going back onto the issue we got here, I think it's all accepted in terms of Article 18, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. There's the absolute right in terms of content of faith, but then there's the restricted right in terms of manifestation. And the challenges we face, Sikhs throughout the diaspora, especially in Europe, is the rise in secularism. The whole rise in terms of saying, actually, there's a distinction between your public life and your private life. And the whole notion that we're facing in France, we're facing in Belgium and other European countries, is the whole separation, one of separation of church and state. And that links into the fact that what secularism says to a certain extent is that when you go to work, when you leave your house, then actually what you need to do is leave your faith there, leave your religion at your house, and when you go into the public, you're a different person. Now, for certain faiths, it might be possible, because certain faiths like Christianity, for example, it's more in terms of consciousness. Whereas for Sikhism, the whole basic concept is the concept of medium being. The fact that our spiritual, temporal and social is all one. We're holistic. It is impossible for a Sikh to actually separate their private life from their public life. So I think that's the challenge we're facing. And we're actually attacked that straight on to say, actually, when we talk about wearing the star, wearing the turban, it's not a manifestation of our faith. If it's a manifestation of our faith, that can be restricted. Actually, it's a part of our consciousness. The wearing of my turban is my sovereignty. The fact that I'm sovereign to God and nobody else. The wearing of my star is automatically to my spirituality. I can't separate the two together. So I think the challenge for us is there in terms of how do we address that. The way to address it is to say that actually, when I'm wearing my 5Ks and my star, it's a part and parcel of my consciousness, of my religion. It's not a symbol, it's not an outward appearance, but it's part and parcel of what I am. I cannot, as a Sikh, separate my public life from my private life. I cannot, when I leave the Gurdwara or when I leave my house, to say, okay, my Sikhi stays here, and now I'm going into the public as a French person, as a British person, and that's what secularism is all about. So I think that's the challenge. It's unfortunate that, if you look at the rise of secularism, even in Punjab, where we've got the Shromani Akali Dal president, Sukhbir Singh Badal, that was a fascist party, but even that party is now said we're a secular party. And the secular party means that actually we're not for one faith. So I just wanted to share those thoughts with you. But in terms of going forward and what we've been doing, like Osha Senki talked about the Sikh Council. The Sikh Council was actually set up a couple of years ago in the UK, where we go over 150, 60 gurdwaras together, the Sikh organisations. And we've also got we've decided to divide our work into projects and subcommittees. And we've got a subcommittee that works in European and international affairs. And what we've been doing, and I think what's very important for us, to actually get into those institutions where policy is made, where legislation is drafted. If we could be at the table where policymakers are drafting policies, where people that are responsible for making legislations are actually making the legislations, and if we can be around that table to actually have an input and say, well, actually, do you know, if you're going to make a legislation on certain issues, that's going to affect the Sikhs. And what we've done from the Council's perspective, actually, we've linked into the Council of Europe. Now, the Council of Europe represents 47 countries in Europe. And through the Council of Europe, they've actually got, within the Council of Europe, a subcommittee called the European Council Against Racism and Intolerance. And that department is responsible for tackling racism issues, intolerance, religious discrimination throughout the 47 countries of Europe. We've actually managed to get into a dialogue with them, to have that conversation. And it was through them, through our link with them, where the Italian representatives on the European Council Against Racism actually helped us to set up a meeting with the Italian authorities. We've also linked into the European Commission. And again, we've been speaking to Commissioner Sims, whose department is responsible for aviation and transport. So my point is that we're actually getting involved in those institutions where decisions are made and where we can raise awareness of what we're doing. For me, I think the case of Ivan Gising is a starting point for us. And where in a way we've had that success in that case is gained based on proportionality and legitimate aim. And I think we need to build on that to say, when we do talk about Article 18, actually we're not talking about manifestation of one's faith. Because if you talk about manifestation of my faith, where am I to start, then there's a restriction and we get the whole issue of health and safety, how does it affect other people. But our attack should be, it's not a manifestation, it's a consciousness of my religion. So therefore it's an absolute right. It's not a restricted right, it's an absolute right for me to be able to wear my 5Ks and my star. And I think that's the challenge we've got. And just before I end, I think it's pertinent for me to share an example with you, where I talked about we have to be at the table where legislation is drafted. And please bear with me a couple of minutes for doing this, because I think it's an important note to make with a practical example. In the UK, we had legislation coming through called the Offensive Weapons Act 1996, which basically said that anybody wearing a sharp article in the public space will be arrested. The legislation came out saying that anybody at all who's wearing a sharp blade or a knife or carrying a knife in the public will be arrested. Now, because of our conversations with the policymakers and the British government, we were fortunate enough through our dialogue that when that legislation was drafted, within that legislation there was 2 exemptions, basically which said that a person can carry a knife or an article, and that's what they call it, a blade, for 2 reasons. One, if they're taking it to work, in terms of being a plumber or whatever else. The second was if they're wearing it for religious reasons. Now, if you think about it, the religious reasons only apply to one religion, which is Sikhism. And it was very cleverly drafted in a certain way that you wouldn't have maybe the UK population, the main population saying, hey, hold on a second, why are you letting Sikhs wear turbans? But the way they drafted it was to say, actually, a person can wear, for example, a knife or a shaped blade if they're wearing it for religious reasons. And it was only because we were able to sit down around the table, get involved with the policymakers, get involved with the people that are doing the legislation, get involved in terms of lobbying our MPs and speaking to them, speaking to civil servants and say, hold on a second, you're going to make a legislation here which is going to have an impact on the Sikhs. And we want to have that dialogue with you to say, how can we work together to ensure you've got health and safety and security, but also safeguarding our rights. So I think, to end with, I think the building blocks for us is that we have to engage with those institutions that are making the decisions. From the Sikh Council in UK and another organisation, we're doing that. We're working with the European Union, we're working with the European Commission, we're working with the Council of Europe. And what I urge my colleagues, especially in the States, to do is you have to engage with the United Nations and start that conversation with the United Nations Rapporteur on Religion or Belief, the United Nations Rapporteur on Minorities. Get involved in those organizations. It is only collectively together that if we work in those institutions, rather than, it's important to shout and have the conversation with others, but more importantly, let's work with those institutions and let's work with those people that are developing policy. Apologies for stepping over time. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.